You have different paths, but you can't see everywhere. You have to try to find your way out of this very difficult path, and you might go the wrong way sometimes. It's called a maze, and the farmers will make one out of corn. And for especially farmers in this area, it's more like a tourist attraction. For every season, we have words and phrases that are useful to talk about that season, right? Well, where I am now in New York State, it is autumn or fall, and we'll talk about the difference between those words. What I'd like to do is share with you some of the most common words and phrases that you need to talk about fall or autumn, and some of the things that happen in fall or autumn. So let's do that. A few common words and phrases, and this is not too hard. Once you know them, you know them. It's relatively simple. I think the first question would be fall or autumn. We don't say winter cold season. Well, we could say cold season, but winter is the word. Summer is the word. We don't say summer and then the swelter or something like that. We have one word for all the seasons except for autumn or fall. So which one should you say? You can say either one, but I will say fall is more common in the United States and autumn is more common in the UK. Not that people don't say autumn in the United States where I live, but it is more common for people to say fall. I like the word autumn. I think it feels nice. It's a nice word to say, so I try to use it sometimes. But there are some specific phrases that use the word fall that we're going to go over. Well, we're going to go over a few things related to fall specifically. Now, one thing that does help, I think, is if you're in the United States, we have time changes, and there's always been a little thing that helps me remember which way the clock goes, forward or backward. We have what's called daylight savings time, which happens in the spring, and then we have another time change that happens in the autumn, the fall. But if you remember this, spring forward, we can imagine springing forward, fall back, because that's what we do. Fall back, spring forward. So the clocks go back in the fall and forward in the spring. I think that's kind of helpful. So for that reason, fall is actually useful. So what about talking about the temperature, how it feels to be in fall? You'll hear people say that it's chilly. Now, chilly is a great word for describing a kind of cold feeling, but not very cold, not as cold as winter. You may need something light to cover up, not just a t-shirt, but it's not so cold that you need to wear a big heavy coat. It is chilly. How's the weather today? Chilly. Or I love the chilly autumn weather, the chilly fall weather. Sometimes we call that, I love to call it, sweater weather. I love sweater weather. What's sweater weather? Weather where you need to wear a sweater. That's what it is. So that's a common way to describe it. I can't wait for sweater weather. And actually, that's true about me. I do not like the summer. I like the autumn, the fall, because of sweater weather. It's more interesting. You have more clothes to choose from, right? You can also describe that whole period of time as getting colder, because it is. You're moving away from summer toward winter, so potentially week by week it's getting colder and colder. So during the autumn, we can describe it as always getting colder. It's getting colder, it's getting colder, it's getting colder. You'll hear people always say that too. And then a bit nippy. So nippy is just a word to mean, it's kind of cold. It's a bit nippy, it's a bit cold. That is a fairly common way to describe weather that is chilly or kind of cold. Okay, now what about what you see? What about visually what you see and what is going on, right? Well, obviously, like you see behind me, the leaves go from green to orange to yellow to brown, and then they fall off, right? Well, do we say, oh, the leaves are dying? It is the season of things dying, that's true, but we don't usually say, it's fall, everything's dying. That's somewhat depressing, I suppose, right? We instead talk about it in a positive sense. We say the leaves are changing, the changing leaves. And that gives it a sort of artistic beauty. It's so beautiful. If I look out the window right now, I'll see orange, green, yellow, brown. I'll see a bunch of different colors, and it's really beautiful. The changing leaves of autumn are spectacular. People go up from New York City to the upstate New York area or the Hudson Valley to look at the leaves. The changing leaves are amazing to see. We also describe this as harvest season. Harvesting what? Well, corn and pumpkins and squash and whatever, wheat, soybeans, whatever needs to be harvested usually is harvested in the autumn before winter as it starts to get colder. So we call it harvest season. Now, the one thing I don't like about autumn is that it causes me to have severe allergies. I get foggy brain fog. I start sneezing. My nose is running. My eyes turn red. I do have some medicine I can take, but because of this, I can call autumn also allergy season because it's when I have allergies. So yes, fall is harvest season. Well, that's nice, but it is also allergy season, which is not so nice. Another way we can describe that colorful feeling that we get, things are crunchy and crisp and brown and orange and green and all different colors. We just say the fall colors, the fall colors. And that is a word that is specific to, or a phrase rather, that is specific to fall. I don't hear people saying very often autumn colors, but I do hear people very often saying fall colors. Ooh, I like this sort of fall colors you have going on your front porch with the corn stalks and the pumpkins and the black cat. That's very cool, right? What sort of activities happen in the fall? The stereotypical, traditional fall time activities. I'm not saying everyone does these. I don't do most of them, to be honest, but I have done all of them. And the first one I actually did last week. I live in the area of the Hudson Valley where there are a lot of orchards. People come up from the city to pick apples. That's the main activity. So apple picking for a lot of people in the United States where apples are grown, where the seasons change. Of course, the United States is very large. Sometimes in some places, of course, there are no seasons, like Florida or Southern California, right? But in some parts of the United States, you have these fall colors and the seasons changing. Apple picking then would be a very common activity. I did it just like last weekend. I went to this beautiful orchard. They had live music and cider and beer and things that you could pick like pears and apples, and it was very cool. And they also had hay rides. This is a kind of weird thing. I think it's mostly for kids, but in the autumn you do see a lot of hay rides. People go to farms and they'll have a tractor with a trailer behind it and then hay bales as seats. So hay or straw as kind of chairs on top of the trailer, and then they'll just drive around through the fields or drive around through the trees or through the forest. And this is apparently it's a fun activity. Doesn't really appeal to me anymore. I haven't done it since I was probably 6 years old, but it is a thing that especially is popular for kids. Pumpkin carving is associated with Halloween, and people do it. I would say adults do it more as a decoration. You would carve a pumpkin to look like a face and put it on your porch or put put it outside somewhere, and sometimes put a candle inside to make it glow from the inside. The activity is carving pumpkins, pumpkin carving, but once you make one, it looks like a head with a scary mouth. Again, associated with Halloween, this is called a jack-o'-lantern. A jack-o'-lantern is the traditional word for it. And then sometimes you also see corn mazes. A maze is where you have different paths, but you can't see everywhere. You have to try to find your way out of this very difficult path, and you might go the wrong way sometimes. It's called a maze, and the farmers will make one out of corn. And for especially farmers in this area, it's more like a tourist attraction. A lot of farms around me, where I live, they have this whole season as tourist time. People come from all around to do all of this stuff: apple picking, hay rides, pumpkin carving, and corn mazes. And those farms make a lot of money, not just selling their stuff, their produce, but on people paying for hay rides and to go through the corn maze, that sort of thing. So to put all this together, let's just describe it. Let's do a simple description of what is nice about the fall. What is nice about autumn? This is one thing we might say to sort of evoke or give the feeling of fall. In the fall, when the leaves are turning, just say turning. When the leaves are turning or changing, you could put changing there, turning there. I swapped in turning to give you a sense for another way to say that. When the leaves are turning and the weather is getting colder, I like to stay warm and cozy. Cozy is a feeling of being warm and comfortable because it's warm. Warm and cozy by the fire with a hot cup of tea and a book. If you picture that, right, sitting by the fire, hot cup of tea, a blanket, a book, and it's kind of cold outside and the colors are changing, that sounds, I think, very nice, very cozy. So, if you have any questions about this, if you have any questions about how to talk about autumn or fall, let me know. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also, check out my full courses in the links in the description.